Welcome to Season 3 of the Builders Podcast. I'm Matt Levenhagen. Here we share the journeys, strategies, and lessons that help entrepreneurs build what's next. Builders helping builders. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Shaun Modi. Welcome to the show, Shaun.
Thanks for having me.
So Shaun is the founder and CEO of Capital AI. And, he's launched over 60 products in his lifetime. He holds 15 patents, which is pretty significant. He's also worked for some really big companies, some really cool companies, from NASA to Airbnb. I think you were at NASA when you were 19, which
Yeah, I think roughly that age. Yeah.
we're going to talk about because that's kind of young to be at NASA. But before we get into that, first of all, why don't you just take a minute and just tell us what you do at Capital AI? What is that all about?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Shaun, the founder and CEO of Capital AI. We've built the sovereign operating system for intelligence. And what that means in practical speech, we have a product called Capital Composer, which is a canvas for AI agents that connect to proprietary data sets and create automations. And those automations can result in things like a due diligence report for a tax audit consulting firm. It can be a regulatory filing for a bank. It can be an intelligence assessment for a government agency. It's quite versatile, but what they all have in common are these are high stakes documents that are mission critical. And on this canvas, we have over 500 different AI models that power these agents. And such agents have tradecraft logic, business logic embedded in them. And yeah, we serve financial services and national security customers.
Very nice. Well, that's really awesome. So the first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to turn the reins over to you, and you can tell a little bit about your story. Now, you can go back as far as you want. And obviously we want to focus on the things that probably influenced you or drove you towards the direction you're in now and where you've landed and the interesting bits. But I feel like we should start. I'm curious, like if you're at NASA at 19, I feel like it's a good place to start because that's unique. And I'm kind of curious what your childhood was like how you ended up, there and what happened from there.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in suburban New Jersey. Both of my parents are graphic designers. My sister is a graphic designer, works in the
Oh,
New York
nice.
Times. And I'm an industrial designer, so maybe I'm the black sheep of the family, but we're a family of designers. So creativity and the sciences always were like a part of our upbringing as a family. My grandfather worked in government. He was the chief executive officer of the President's Science Advisory Committee for 4 presidents. So that was an interesting vector of my upbringing. I studied industrial design at Rhode Island School of Design, otherwise known as RISD, where I focused on physical hardware design, but also software. So I started coding when I was really young. So I was passionate about building websites and applications. But at the same time, I loved the intersection of form and function. So how do you make something that's desirable, beautiful, and intuitive? And that's when NASA came on my radar. There was a summer internship program available at Johnson Space Center, which was very competitive. I applied, went through all these rigorous interviews, and was selected. And I went down to JSC and worked side by side with astronauts designing a lunar base and associated vehicles to get astronauts from orbit down to the base. And at the time, the concept was to use the LEM, otherwise known as the landing module platform, I believe is what it stands for. It goes back to the Apollo programs, is to use the spent hydrogen propellant tanks as habitable environments. So once your fuel was expended, getting to the surface of the moon, it had a baffle system where you would set up your living space. And the baffles mean there were pieces of wires and fabric that you could reconfigure because every bit of mass, meaning all the weight that you send up to the moon is very expensive. So you want to minimize mass as much as humanly possible. And also, in the event of like fires or extreme events, you need to be able to reconfigure space very, very quickly. And lastly, when you're in low gravity environments, your body starts to deteriorate. So bone density becomes more fragile. Your retinas deteriorate as well if you're only looking at things this far away. So these are all
Yeah.
the design considerations a designer has when designing for the moon. And then I spent my time for the rest of RISD, splitting my time between RISD and MIT, working on a mobile lunar base. So think of it as a giant RV that would drive from the North Pole to the South Pole of the moon and use inflatables to expand and contract these habitable environments, and you could link them up and go find potentially ice on the moon and other critical resources. So that's my high level NASA engagement. I went to
Yeah.
China after graduation as well, where I went to the International Space University and worked side by side with leaders from NASA, ESA, the Japanese Space Agency, and companies on designing a number of countermeasures for long-term habitability in space.
It feels like a boy's dream. Like you're growing up, we're all like into space and stuff, and you're like just out of high school or whatever, or maybe you were
W-
in college. Maybe you
I
go
was
to
in
college. If
college, yeah. What's
yeah,
what's interesting on all this, because I graduated college in 2007, and splitting my time at MIT, I worked with some MBA students at Sloan School on a program with Nokia. And at that time,
yeah,
Nokia was the number one handset maker in the world. And there was this new technology called multi-touch. Multi-touch is what's in every iPhone or all smartphones today, but it was a new technology at the time using this capacitive touch technology. I'm sure you remember touch screens of the Palm Pilot era, and others were very,
right.
rigid and clunky and
Your
imprecise.
stylus.
But multi-touch makes it, high fidelity. So we were brought into a special program to come up with ideas for Nokia of what does a multi-touch device of the future look like. And that is when I realized this smartphone revolution is going to fundamentally change the way people interact with computers and the internet. While my heart was in NASA, my brain was like, I think there's going to be the biggest technological transformation of our lifetime.
Oh,
I need to get involved with software. So made the decision after my time in Beijing to join Motorola Enterprise Mobility Business, which was previously known as Symbol Technologies. So if you go and check out at a store and you see a barcode scanner or those mobile computers that people carry around at Home Depots, that was that business. But these are devices that you could some of them you could drop off a building and they would survive. So they're waterproof, they're shockproof. So I was designing rugged mobile computers and software systems for companies like FedEx, UPS, the Army. Those were the key customers, and that's where I really kind of sharpened my skills around user centered product design and also how to perform in a corporate culture, which I think had some positives and negatives. What I learned, what I liked, and certainly did not like about working at a big company.
hmm. Wow. So what did you like the most of that? Like, I feel like you when going from NASA. Now that's a jump, but like, explain that jump to like, what really drives you? Like, you
Well,
want to
I
obviously
love,
you want to create
yeah.
products. You want to you see an opportunity like that. You see the like this is you're presented this tech. You're kind of got an insight into this technology before a lot of us did, obviously, and you're like, but you noticed like this is going to change everything.
Yeah. Well, I knew mobile computing was going to fundamentally change the way people interact with each other and also with businesses themselves. So
Mhm.
unlocking mobile commerce and other types of
Why did you
things.
think? Why did you think that though? Like, why? What was so dramatic about this?
Well, obviously, when the iPhone launched, it was such a captivating user experience, and it's something
Mm,
that you would enjoy holding in your hand. It was almost like a piece of jewelry that it was enjoyable to touch, and it
mm,
was enjoyable to look at, and it was so simple and captivating as a product. I said, well, and the App Store didn't even exist yet, right? So you just had
right.
your table stakes applications that Apple provided you, but the experience of it was just so magical. I knew it was only a matter of time till there'd be rich third-party applications that could leverage the sensors on the phone,
Mm,
GPS particularly. And I knew there was a revolution that was imminent, because my time at MIT project with Nokia, I was doing deep market and user research into trends in mobile computing globally, and the
gotcha.
projections were that this thing is going to take off. So, after my time at Motorola, I was actually recruited to go to Google, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna stop the hardware side for a bit. I'm gonna go full software. And I had two offers from Google, one to join the New York City team to work on ads, and the other team was in California to work on a product called SideWiki, which was Larry and Sergey, the founder of Google's first thesis project at Stanford before they invented PageRank, and they kept it
Oh, wow.
going. And this
Yeah.
is before Chrome, the browser. So this is when there was Chromic, the Google extension within Internet Explorer. That's how Google got market distribution. As part of that, you can install SideWiki, which is a social annotation of the web. So think you go to a website and you can have a chat with other people about it. There's comments, and then also they were doing semantic analysis of what was on the site, so you can see key trends. It's kind of like what large language models are doing now, or some of these
Mm.
browsers are trying to do now. This idea keeps recycling itself. So anyway, needless to say, I was an East Coast kid. I decided to move out to California, pack up everything, and move to the Mission in San Francisco. And that decision changed my life forever.
Wow. Yeah, those are some early days. You mentioned PageRank. I don't even know if anybody even knows what that is at this point.
Well, I think Google equity holders know, 'cause
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
best money making machine of all time. Because on top of that is AdWords and AdSense.
Well, I
Yeah,
remember because I came when I first started on the web over 20 years ago. I spent the first decade actually doing internet marketing. I was doing affiliate marketing and pay per click, and so I was into search and all that stuff. So I'm familiar with. We had the PageRank bar. It was
yeah,
like 0 to 10, I think. We're always that
amazing.
it just drove everything. Good memories flooding back. Oh, but
The simple days,
the
yes.
simple days. Yeah, a lot changed in that first in the 2000s. I kind of came in the wild wild west days. Can't do the things you can do today, or back then. Anyway, so all right. Well, so you went to San Francisco. So how'd that go?
It was
How was
um
that
it was
experience?
awesome. So that first project was SideWiki, and it was a unique moment because Google, I mean, by today's standards, was much smaller.
Mhm.
But I'd never been to a campus like that, where also coming from Motorola, very top down hierarchical structure.
All right.
Google is a matrix organization, which is ostensibly flat. So it doesn't matter how senior you are, um, everyone works together. So there's no hierarchy at all.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought that was really cool. And I basked in it, I would take the shuttle from San Francisco to Mountain View every day, and at the time, I guess relations with Russia were not where they are today. So part of my engineering team was in St. Petersburg, Russia,
Oh wow.
and I would get on a call. I'd have to be on a call at 7 a.m. in Mountain View every Monday morning to do what was called the VTC. Right, this is pre Google Meet, Hangout,
Oh yeah.
Zoom with our team there, and it was a great cultural learning experience. I was able to visit that. It went before that office closed. I was able to visit. It was a unique experience. I picked up my visa at a flower shop in the Richmond district. It was a very unique experience of how to collect one's visa to go
Oh
to a
wow.
foreign country, uh, out of a Jean Le Carre novel of some sort. But it was really awesome. So then I'm building at Google. I'm meeting people on the bus down, meeting people for lunch, and then this thing called the like button launches, and that is the on Facebook, and Facebook
Right.
was ascendant, so that sent Google into a war mode, because there was for the first time something that could potentially rewire the ranking of information on the internet that it was competitive with PageRank.
That's
So that
crazy. So there wasn't like a like button until Facebook came along. So they're the ones that introduced that. And like, how did no one think of that?
MySpace might have Friendster, MySpace, the social networks of yesteryear may have had something
Yeah.
like that, but the like button, because of Facebook's virality,
Mm,
changed, changed it changed the game for Google because of the sheer growth metrics of Facebook at that time.
right,
So
right.
through the lens of, um, PageRank, which is, credible sources linking to each other,
Yeah,
this is a social layer of, hey, Matt likes this, so does, your friend from college, so does your colleague. That could be a stronger sign and also more monetizable because you have the social proof. So you can imagine if you're the exec team at Google and you're like, okay, this could be a huge threat for us. So there was a code name Emerald Sea, which was Google's all of company effort to add a social layer to the business. And I volunteered to join in, and boy, that was one heck of an experience. I was
that's
lucky enough to be partnered with a gentleman named Andy Hertzfeld, who was he was on the original Macintosh team with Steve Jobs. So,
I
and
recognize that name
he
for some reason.
was part of building the drop down menu, like the drop
Mm,
down menu on the Mac. He's the original hacker, and he was so talented, and he was still coding every day. And we worked on some pretty awesome stuff together. And I also worked with a lot of other great people like Max Vintilla, and Irene Au, Margaret Lee. There's so many just
wow.
extraordinary people of immense talent. Some of who are still there, who are like the top bosses at YouTube and Google writ large. But that was a really unique experience, seeing a company that had such prominence have to challenge their assumptions and build something new within a large corporate context. Like Motorola was not able to do that, right? Because
Mm,
because of their hierarchical structure and their
right.
legacy. Motorola, like they built car radios, right? The first car radio they built, like the
Yeah,
first cell phones, and so much harder for them, possible for Google, but not. But there were challenges. Yeah,
right, right. So, wow, that must have been an incredible atmosphere just to be involved
it
in
was
that and
something.
just yeah. I mean, yeah, and then the connections you make there and stuff got to be just amazing as well. I'm sure you stay connected with some of those folks.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah. Very, very close friends, and
yeah,
you know,
because I mean, you've gone to war together, and to be and to be doing such big things that have such
yeah,
an impact.
and I was lucky enough to work directly with Sergey Brin, the co-founder. He
Yeah.
would come and give feedback to Andy and
Oh,
I,
that's cool.
and yeah, it was one heck of a time. One time I remember he was testing out. I designed this thing called Google Circles with Andy, and it was the way to organize. There was research by a guy named Paul Adams, so I believe is at Intercom. He's an incredible user researcher, and he did this wrote this white paper that talked about people don't want to share blindly with every friend they have. They want people innately want to share with select groups. Like I have
Mm,
my group of friends that are into fantasy football, and my group of friends from college. I have my family. Why broadcast everything I do to everyone? So we created this nifty interface where you could bootstrap your Gmail contacts into this graphical UI where you would just drag and drop the people you wanted to what circles you wanted. So there was a very visual and simple way to categorize your contacts and thus share content with them. And that's what I was working with Andy on. Anyway, needless to say, Sergey comes down to my computer and he logs in with his Gmail account, Google account, gives feedback where it was a vertical drag and drop. He said, "Hey, what if we turned it sideways?" And Andy and I looked at each other like, "Oh my goodness, this is a crazy idea." But that was how brilliant Sergey was. Uh,
yeah.
so anyway, he gives the feedback and walks away. And then I'm like, "Wow, that was great feedback." And Andy and I are figuring out what to do next. I go check my email and I see Richard Branson, Eric Schmidt, Larry Page. I'm like, this is not my email. This
Oh
is
my gosh.
Sergey's email. So I immediately logged out. But anyway, that was how trusting he was and cool. Just
Yeah.
working that closely with one of the most iconoclastic founders in post World War II history, that was a special moment.
Man. Yeah, and I've had the opportunity to work with, smart people, maybe not that, but really, really smart people, geniuses in the past. And it's always just amazing how you see how they just think differently. It's like, yep, that's why they're successful. That's why they're
Yeah,
doing the things
yeah.
they're doing in the world. Did you like pick up anything from him that just that did he change you in any way? Like, just interacting with him and like, how he thinks and stuff like that. Did you onboard some of that?
Well, certainly, I think, like, bold challenging assumptions in a bold way, and not being afraid to really, like, question fundamentals.
Mm,
And Andy, I thought from Andy Hertzfeld, I learned so much about craftsmanship when it came to code. So as
mm,
an industrial designer, and product designer, I spend most of my time in user experience and visual, connecting business need to user need to desirability. Like, how do you make it aesthetically engaging and beautiful, right? People, we want to use beautiful things. Andy would have to make that a reality in code, in the browser, because Google is a, web-based company. They don't make native software for, for your laptop or your desktop
right.
like the way Apple does, or Microsoft. So he gave me really the master class in what it means to take a design and ensure excellence in execution when it came to writing code in the browser. And that was really cool.
Very cool.
And also
So,
lessons learned from Steve. I mean, he and Steve go way back, and when
oh,
we'd be there working to 7, 8 o'clock at night, he'd come out with stories of, Steve Jobs in the early days of Mac or Apple, and that those were treasured moments.
oh, very nice. So from there, I know Airbnb's in here. Was that before or
Yeah.
after this? Is that
That's
coming
this
up
is after.
next?
Yeah, yeah. So during this time, my buddies from RISD, Joe and Brian, Joe Gibby and Brian Chesky, very close friends. They started this company, Air Bed and Breakfast, and Joe kept saying, "Hey, you should come design here." Like, and it was a small, tiny company. I went out and actually started my own company after leaving Google with a Google product manager. It was a visual search engine to where you would log in with Facebook Connect and rapidly browse through products, art, fashion, and it would deep link to where you could buy those things. And
Oh,
we bootstrapped off things like Refinery 29, a shopping site, Zappos entire shoe catalog, this new thing called Pinterest, where you would think of it as before Tinder existed. It was Tinder, but for products, art, and fashion, where you could go and buy things and see what your friends liked and what you
hmm,
had in common. And we were going out to raise a round of funding, and we had some unique acquisition opportunities from companies like Pinterest and others. And but my friends Joe and Brian, I socially were there at the office all the time, and they convinced me, and I was hired, so to speak, to Airbnb, and was
wow.
joined as one of their first product designers. And it was at that moment when I was evaluating what step I wanted to take. Every Friday, the company would do a happy hour in a different bar in San Francisco because the company was so small, you could just fit everyone in a tiny pub. So still to
Right.
date, the oldest surviving bar in San Francisco is called Elixir. And I go to the bar and I see one of my friends at the company, and then I meet this lovely woman named Laura, and that she just had joined 2 months earlier, and now, yeah, she's my wife, and we have four
Oh,
kids.
wow.
So that was
Nice.
if anything, yeah, that was the greatest ROI on Airbnb. Now,
No
of
kidding,
course,
right?
it was amazing. So, no, we got to work and immediately, and I started designing the search experience, the guest experience, we call it, how to discover properties, how to make it easy to evaluate, improving photography. All the photos were very small at the time, making them captivating and large, really making it easy to fill out your profile, thus increasing trust. Because the more fidelity you have in representing who you are, the more likely a host is to accept you. And we're
Right,
doing
right.
that for the host experience as well. How do you update your calendar? How do you review booking inquiries on your mobile device? These were all things that we wanted to make the most delightful experience, but it had to be effective from a marketplace perspective. So, and then this product called Wishlist, which is still there today. It's a way to save and compare the listings that you love, share them with friends, and we use that as marketing opportunities with publications. New York Times picked it up. It was a really fun moment. We were working 6 7 days a week, and we were all it was a magical time.
I think what's gotta be amazing with that is, I mean, you're doing something one of my favorite things in my job, doing web design myself, and coding is seeing an impact, on what you're doing. Like, you're making, like, UX, you're thinking about the user experience, you're thinking about, like, just, actually yesterday, what is today? Tuesday. Yesterday, I got a note from a CRO from one of our big clients, and he's like, "Yeah, our, average order value has gone up because of all the work you've been doing on I built funnels and stuff, the whole funnel system and upsell system for them for WooCommerce. Um, I've been working on it for a couple months, but to see actually getting out there, and it wasn't reverted. It didn't break. Nothing happened. It actually had that positive impact. That's something I live for, and I'm sure the same there. Like, especially in the beginning of a company like that, when you're testing, you're trying things, and you're seeing all this stuff, and then and obviously Airbnb did pretty well. So probably a lot of
Yeah,
what
but
you were
not
doing had a
without
big impact.
not without challenges. I remember there was a company called Wimdu, and they raised a ton of money, and there was a history of this particular group of investors that would clone American tech companies and grow them
Mm,
very quickly in Europe, and essentially use that as a leverage to say, "Hey, buy us out because we're owning the zone in Europe." And Airbnb, we didn't bend the knee, and that was a really unique moment because similar to, but I knew I had been through that experience before at Google, right? So I knew what it was like to be challenged by a competitor,
wow.
but I learned a lot of lessons from Google. So I think, and at Airbnb, we won. Wimdu does not exist
You don't
anymore.
back down. Is that what's the lesson there? Like, just stand
I
your
think,
ground
I think,
and
I
believe in
think,
yourself.
I think with that, not backing down and ensuring that you deliver the best customer experience possible, and that means making when you get into an Airbnb, the place is clean, right? The photos represent the actual listing. It's the most personalized experience possible. The pages load quickly.
Right.
The translation to Korean, German, French, Italian is all accurate. All of those things are really important to engender trust and credibility in a platform. So it's not like one particular, oh, hey, we won't back down. It's like, we are going to stand our ground here. We're not going to be extorted. We're going to build a better product as a
It'll
result
be
of this
better.
challenge.
Better.
That's what I learned, right? That's how we
Oh, I love
approached
that.
it.
I
Yeah.
love that. So from there, so are we landing on capital AI? Where does that come in, or is there something else
Yeah.
in there?
So I did my work at Airbnb. It was an amazing journey. And then I started getting requests from other founders and investors to advise their portfolio companies on design. And I was at Airbnb for a while, and I felt like I did my time there, and it was time to hang up my own shingle, so to speak. So I was always inspired by the Eameses, Ray and Charles Eames, and Raymond Loewy. These are some of the most important industrial designers in American history. Raymond Loewy was the only industrial designer to ever be on the cover of Time magazine. We're talking about, like, these are design
Titans of
studios
yeah.
where companies come and look for innovation. So I decided to start a studio, and it was called TM. It was an amazing company. We launched so many products, worked on meaningful work. We were very selective in the clients that we took on. It
Mm,
was one, the technology or the company had to have the potential to make a positive impact in the world, like a true meaningful impact in the spirit of original Silicon Valley, right? And it was just my ethics.
yeah,
2, there had to be some type of emerging technology component to it, like something that's new and disruptive that can unlock potential. And 3, they had to be succeeding despite themselves. meaning their customers were using or finding value in the product despite the fact it's not particularly desirable or intuitive. So that was the rubric of how we worked with our clients. So we ended up doing really unique stuff in pretty much every sector possible. One of our earliest clients was a company called Product Hunt, which is, think of it, it's the Reddit for all new products. So every startup launches, and now still big companies launch their products on Product Hunt. So that was fun. We designed that product and helped them expand. Worked on software for a lightweight electric skateboard for last mile transportation called Boosted Boards, designing their user experience. We did Brex, which there's these two awesome founders that Pedro and Enrique, who just pivoted from being a VR company and they built a credit card for startups. And we were part of that original launch. And now they just sold to Capital One for, I think, $5 billion.
Wow.
Then started doing work in Europe, designed software for a company named Conux, which they make software for high-speed rail maintenance operations for Deutsche Bahn, Trenitalia, Renfe, all the big rail providers in Europe. And that was really cool because you're dealing with looking at, kinetic energy and different types of anomalies that impact railway switches that in Germany alone, 8 million people take long distance rail every day. So you're talking about like massive, massive impact. And then started working with the government and worked on some programs for the Department of Defense, now Department of War, and advising the White House on creating a chief design officer and design studio. So those were some of the things we were doing. And it was during COVID. There was an emergency logistics program we were brought into Department of Defense with the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, which is now part of CDAO. So anyway, for those inside baseball DOW nerds, but my job, we were hired, the government spun up all these different AI model providers. And my job was to understand, and the model providers were being brought in to identify supply chain risk around military bases. So looking at availability of everything from water, diapers to electronic medical equipment supply chains, and hurricane potential with COVID. So like very complicated, if this, then that type scenarios where there's predictive modeling, there's different visualizations needed. So my job was to understand the needs of the analysts that were using all these different AI models. And that's where I came up with the idea for Capital and decided to start the company. My co-founder was in government, my CTO and co-founder of Capital AI,
Mhm.
Tom Halloran, and we decided to it was our time to build the product.
Whoa. So, okay. So, so you were solving a problem around kind of the logistics around what's going on with COVID and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah, this
and
was the government was using AI models to understand risk to U.S. military bases as a result of COVID.
what
Because
you,
remember, so
but what AI models? I mean, this has
oh
got to
yeah,
be
there were so many
pre
different
Chat
ones.
GPT.
Yeah, this is pre LLM. So yeah, AI is not new. AI has been around right a long time. So there was everyone from IBM, SAP Qualtrics, MIT Lincoln Lab. I believe Palantir was in there. There was a lot of different, and they each had their own tool, their own dashboard that was very complicated. And what these analysts at Northcom NORAD had to do every day of the week was use these tools, try to derive an insight, and then put it in a PowerPoint. And what they really wanted was a model agnostic or model independent architecture where you could swap in models, they can bring in their data, and they could
Mm,
rapidly create insights. That was the unlock, and that's the recommendation we made for the government. And I decided to start a company to actually solve it.
yeah. Okay. So you, it was because everything you did before this, you weren't really running your own company, or
The design firm
you
was my company, but that was a
that was your company.
consultancy, right? You have to give the
Right.
baby
Right. It's
away.
different.
This is
Right.
is
Right.
different when you're building a product and selling that product, right?
Right.
And that's
Right.
yes, yes. So this is, but yes, yeah.
So how big of your team? How big of was your team, and how did that? How did you? What were some of the early like lessons around kind of building a company like that?
Yeah, building capital. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so many. Where do we start? Well, one, raising venture capital is a unique experience. Um, you, right, have to put together a deck. You have to put together, a narrative that is persuasive and insightful. You have to communicate your vision and find investors that believe in that vision and believe in you. I think when you're
Mm,
dealing with early stage
yeah.
investors at the seed stage, it's really, it's about the person, because
Mhm.
the company's so new. So that was a unique experience. Finding your first customers is a really humbling and important thing to get right. Knowing what customers to take on and not take on, right? Because you ultimately want to make them successful, and being smart about which ones you can honestly impact and which
But that's what
ones,
kind of like when in your last company, or you were talking about the 3 things that you were
yeah,
looking for in a customer, and I find that that's kind of that seems like you learn that along the way, that you have to just define who your market is, like who you're gonna focus on, whatever, and from there, that, that kind of steers you into a right direction. You could probably do better for if you're,
hundred
specialized like that.
100%. And I think there's two schools. You can go after big companies or smaller companies.
Yeah,
There's trade-offs for both, because the bigger companies obviously have, bigger checkbooks, or can write
yeah,
bigger checks, but are much slower to adopt. You have to deal with tons of legal. There's there's innately antibodies, right?
yeah,
In
right.
every large corporation, whether you work in one or you sell to one, like there's always folks that, will slow things down. And then there's
Mhm.
earlier stage companies where maybe it's easier to sell, but the ticket sizes are much smaller and the use cases are not as repeatable. So those are the real interest. And these are still things that we contend with today, right? As we
Mhm.
scale, we're a 26-person team now. We sell to massive companies and government agencies, but we also have smaller customers as well, and it's a constant work in progress, even
Yeah,
with a more mature product, like we have today.
yeah. Yeah, and then you gotta I mean, there's all kinds of considerations. Even the size, like how big you want to be, like,
Yeah, and then
I
there's
mean,
sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Uh, and then there's pivots.
Mm,
There's multiple reasons to pivot. Every company has to pivot,
mm,
all the time, right? Like, it's just when you're bigger, you don't call it a pivot. You call it a new product. You say we're canceling this program and we're going to do something
right,
different. But pivots when you're small, you feel it much more because you're a light and lean team and you don't have the deep well of resources in terms of people or funds in your bank account to be able to
right.
weather those, versus, let's say, Apple wants to cancel their your VR headset, or Google decides to wind down something, Microsoft, what have you. Then those people are just absorbed by another team. But if
Sure.
you're
Yeah.
if you're pivoting as a startup, oh man, you feel it. It's like it's your small boat in a rough ocean. But what was
Yeah.
interesting, so we were building a lot, and we got a lot of traction in healthcare early on. And
Mm,
healthcare is a great industry. It's meaningful. You improve the quality of people's lives, but it is a very challenging go to market, especially when you're dealing with health insurance. So
mm,
health insurance, I think it's challenging. Who loves their health insurer? uh, right. So
yeah.
we were doing a lot of great work there, and we were getting traction, but how many health insurers are there? And using AI to detect trends in claims data is meaningful, but the go to market was a lot slower than I expected. And this thing called ChatGPT launches, and large language models are then made available via API. And
Hmm.
we wanted to bring these LLMs to healthcare, but because of regulatory and compliance, we weren't able to. So I was sitting with one of my close advisors and investors, Brian Chesky, in San Francisco, and we were like, I think there's a much bigger market opportunity besides healthcare that we could go after, platformed on one of the most disruptive technologies that's been developed in recent history, these LLMs. And we decided to make a pivot out of healthcare. And that was a major strategy shift for a company of our size, but it worked. And we got building to ensure that we were really listening to the needs of what people wanted. We actually employed a network of college students to test out our new product. So we made a model independent, still the same vision, right? Model independent insight generation that's captivating, right? So you bring in whatever models, bring your data, create an insight, but we were doing so in a way that was much broader, so that you could have a college student help them write a paper with it or do research and analyze things with citations. And by working with this network of college students, we fine-tuned on the things that really moved the needle for them, doing rigorous academic work. And this isn't about cheating or having them write an essay in an auto mode. This is something where, how do I quickly aggregate credible sources and create a narrative then I can take and then bring to my research or work. And with that product in place, we had thousands and thousands of users. We got in a Y
So
Combinator.
it's a product. Are they paying for this, or how
They
is
were
that?
paying for it, yeah,
How is it
yeah,
monetized? Okay.
it was monetized, yeah. So then we got into Y Combinator. We applied. This is in the summer 24, and I moved out to California for a few months, and so did my co-founder. And we went through it, and our partner was Gary Tan, who's the president of YC, as we call it. And man, that really work hardened our thesis. And
Mm,
we won our first major flagship customer during that time, and that was called Politico. Where we
okay.
powered their, yeah, and that was a great customer to get. And we got a few other customers, but also during that time, what we realized, it wasn't about creating a destination where you come and put in a prompt and get a report. It's actually what people wanted was the infrastructure that we built underneath to make that possible. They wanted to
Oh,
make our technology part of their applications. And that's when the light bulb went off, like, "Oh, man, like, we're an enterprise business. Yes, we are this intelligence layer for the world's most important companies and government agencies." And I'll
wow.
pause there.
Wow, that's what's fascinating. That's what I love about business. It's like, you start out with one thing, and as time goes on, opportunities come up, like just like again, me, much smaller potatoes over here. But like as I go along, like, oh, I have this client that we've been helping now for a couple of years. I guess we're in that business. Or you see opportunities like maybe we should go after that business more just because of how things evolve or the opportunities that suddenly are appear. And it sounds like and that's what I think that's what's nice about being smaller though too, is you can be a little bit more fluid and make, pivots are maybe more dramatic, but you can do it
A
and follow the
Absolutely. And so we got out of Y Combinator. We
yeah.
raised more venture, and then that was great because then we could accelerate our go to market, and we were deploying to more customers in the high end media space. And then we were introduced to a company called EY, Ernst and Young, and that was a life changing introduction. EY is one of the most important global consulting firms in the world.
Okay.
W- Uh, they penetrate, I believe, 20% of the Fortune 1000, if not more.
Wow.
And so they're a deeply influential company when it comes to professional advisory, tax audit, consulting writ large. And this AI transformation is impacting all of the Fortune 1000. It's impacting governments. So then they became our design partner to take this enterprise capability we have, this intelligence layer for agents to power critical automations, but apply that to their top consultants and understanding all the nooks and crannies you need to fill in to make a product like ours enterprise grade to deal with regulated environments where the stakes are
Mm,
high, where there's legal compliance. And then we won some government customers as well. So we've been growing a lot in the UK. We have several UK government agencies that we power and are presently working with. And now we're in scale mode. And the next step for us is Department of War, going back to the roots of how I came up with the idea. And of
yeah.
course, there's a lot of certifications that one needs to get to deal with this very sensitive data. But that's what we're doing. And what's happening now? Fast forward to when this is recorded, May 12th, 2026. You've seen a thousand flowers bloom in terms of AI spend with these enterprise companies. The boards and executives are like, okay, we're going to do X million towards this model provider, another million towards this model provider. We'll do co-pilots. And what happens is that you have your teams using bit of Copilot, Claude
Right.
Code, personal Chat GPT, and it sure you may get the sugar high of like these productivity spikes, but the efficiencies aren't there because you need what a company needs are people working off a single sheet of music. These repeatable workflows that are auditable, governed, so you can control as business leaders, you can control what the outcomes are that meet your standards as an organization, whether it be your mission standards if it's the Department of War, whether it be tradecraft standards if it's an intel agency, or your business and compliance standards if you're a tax audit consulting firm. And that's where we live, right? We're this intelligence layer for driving these critical automations.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, so you're basically creating more of a because I think, there's a lot of different chatbots or AIs out there
Yep.
that do a lot of different things. Even myself, I find myself using different ones for different things. Like I'm Claude Code when I'm doing
Y-
coding, web development, but I
Yep.
also got ChatGPT over here helping me with business stuff and content and other things. And then I got whatever. But it sounds like you help you. That's one of your things is you help you create a more of a centralized thing that where you work. It's doesn't matter. You you explain it probably better, but
Yeah, well,
it's
you want if there's a certain way you do a diligence report, or there's a certain way a regulatory filing has to happen,
mhm,
then you have agents with instructions and what's called evals. These are evaluation criteria. So you have data sources flowing into agents. Think of it as if you go to capital.ai, you can see
mhm,
this stuff. But um, then you have agents that have access to tools, right? It could be a web search tool, it could be a synthesis
right,
tool, you can have a research agent that does research for you. Yeah, and then you have evals that measure the quality of what the AI generates, right? So once you have a cemented workflow that you know works for your business, then you can make that available to your enterprise. So then when someone gets some data and they want to evaluate a deal, or
right.
they want to do a filing, they upload their data and it chooses a workflow that's already been predefined by an organization, instead of people
Gotcha.
vibe coding and burning tons of tokens and money and budget to potentially make something that, one, touches data that they shouldn't have, two, costs a ton of money, and three, could actually hallucinate and produce something that's
Mm.
factually inaccurate. And when you're dealing with high stakes environments, that is it's really important that you have accurate artifacts that you generate.
Oh, man. Okay. So this is like a whole another episode I feel like we need to spin off.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But,
anyway, yeah.
it's very cool. I mean, this what you're doing that we need more of that in the world because
Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of companies are kind of lost. They don't know, and they're scattered and everybody in the company is using different things and building different things. It's like it sounds like you're wrangling that and you create a more unified enterprise solution. So
Well, yeah. I
that's
think
very
the
cool.
thing is also that we have over 500 AI models that come with our product. So why get locked into one? And this is
Yeah.
something that we've seen. I think what's funny about human the kind of decision making in business, we like, especially in the US, like we like Coke versus Pepsi, Uber versus Lyft, Microsoft versus Apple. And
Right.
I think that's where the world is trying to, at least investors are trying to squeeze this decision. Is it OpenAI or Anthropic? I I don't think it'll fundamentally be that. I think what it will be is the proliferation of all types of AI models, LLMs, and different types of models that we don't in categories we don't even know about. Like there's world agents and other types of things, like Jan LeCun is doing. So this technological shift is fundamentally different than previous ones, where you can bottle it up and make it A versus B.
Hmm.
And that's what we're hearing from our customers, right? They want that choice to choose the best models for the job based on performance and cost. And they want to pay for outcomes. They don't want to pay for token usage. So
Right.
that
Right.
is where the ball that's where the puck is going, so to speak. And that's the problem we're laser focused on solving for financial institutions and government agencies.
Love it. And I know for sure that you know where the ball is going based on your
Well,
all the entire conversation.
well,
Like you see the opportunities.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, well, thank you. I would try. It's just spending time with customers is absolutely critical. Right after this call, I'm getting on a call with the National Guard. So it's of the U.S. So really listening to emerging issues that these very important organizations are facing. Like founders sometimes, and you get caught up in only fundraising or you need to make sure you have your finger on the pulse of what
Right.
customers actually want. Because if you lose sight of that, then everything falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Great conversation, Sean. Thanks for sharing your journey and your origin
Thank
and
you.
what you've all and a lot of great stuff. There's so many in conversations like this, like me as the host, I'm sitting here, I could go in so many different rabbit holes because you've done so much. But just kind of this was a great overview of what you've done and now what you're doing today in AI. It's like I said, we need more people like you.
Oh,
So
Matt, means a lot, man. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the
you
time
bet.
today.
You bet. Until next time.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Builders Podcast. One more quick note about our sponsors. At Unified Web Design, we're passionate about doing better together, partnering with agencies and businesses to deliver exceptional web design, development, and ongoing support. And UnifiedLabs.ai is where we explore smart, practical ways to integrate AI directly into your website and e-commerce flows. From intelligent chatbots to marketing automation to back-end reporting, all with a strong focus on user experience and making your systems work smarter. If you haven't already, subscribe or follow to stay updated on future episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, sharing it with someone who might benefit helps us grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep building smarter, bolder, and with purpose.